Good afternoon, Queen's Voice. Nice to be back with you. I hope everybody missed me. I missed everybody. So we're sitting here today in Middle Village at Birdie's. I'd like to thank Birdie's for letting us come out here and do an interview. It's our first time here. We are sitting here with Jonathan Rinaldi, who's running for the Assembly 28th District against an incumbent, Mr. Hevesy, who currently holds that seat. Jonathan, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. I first actually saw you, I was talking a little bit earlier, where you were heckling Crazy Eyes, as I call it, AOC and Schumer, and they were trying to get the security detail to keep you, I guess, at bay. So I saw that video, which instantly made me like you, to be honest with you. I like that you got up and heckled them and whatnot. And that was about the hotel and the illegal aliens and all that. So we were talking. Jonathan lives in Forest Hills, not too far from here. And the 28th district's going to encompass Middle Village, Forest Hills, and Regal Park. Am I missing anything?
Glendale.
Glendale, we'll leave Glendale out. So for those folks who live in those communities that the 28th district basically covers his potential constituents, I would urge everybody to see what Mr. Hevesy has done or hasn't done and see what Jonathan, his plans are to do. I think he's got some good ideas. So Jonathan, like I said, thanks for sitting down with us. Please tell us what made you want to get into this race. What are the sticking points? What are the problems that you want to fix the most when you do win that seat?
I think just like anybody else who sees the deterioration of our city, the inability to have any control over what our kids are learning, and just the medical tyranny that we all went through years ago, I just needed to do something. And I realized that our country's built from the bottom up, not the top down. So us as an individual have an insane amount of power that we just don't realize that we have. So all I really did was read and go to the Board of Elections and find out what I needed to do to run for office. And I saw that there was a vacant seat. The Republican Party did not have anyone running in 28. So I went out, I got my signatures, and I'm going to fight for the community as hard as I can.
And you are running on the GOP ticket as well as the We the People ticket as well.
Yeah, I'm the only candidate in New York that's on both the Republican line and the We the People line.
Okay. And we were speaking a little bit off camera. We live in the same community. And a lot of the issues that we're having here are the dirty streets, the crime, the shoplifting. We were just talking about 2 or 3 major pharmacies in our community have closed. I think the right end of 63rd Drive issued a statement. It was $600,000 in theft in 1 year, shoplifting. So obviously we know we have a lot of issues. The illegal immigrants. We all know that there's a shelter now in Regal Park, the only hotel, unfortunately, at the Wyndham. What are the people telling you when you hit the streets? Obviously, you're speaking to people. What are the top issues that they have, and what are they begging and pleading with you? Please get elected, fix this first.
Yeah, I think for the most part, from talking to the people are somewhat informed, but they make it so complicated that and so compartmentalized where things are happening in front of their eyes, but they don't realize there's an overarching plan. So what I'm really trying to do is just take the information, like the list of bills. I'm trying to take all of the things that the elected officials are doing and just trying to crystallizing it for them and explaining what is the plan, because we have an ideological problem right now. We have a group of people that's grown up in this country, worked hard, raised a family, believe in this country, believe in all of the benefits that this country can provide. And then we have a group of people that believe that our country is evil, believe that the family is evil, believe that we as an individual can do whatever it is that we want. So they've established a system where it's only going to hurt us. So the people at this point need to wake up and understand that we still have the power to make a change. We still have the ability to turn this ship around, but it's almost too late.
No, listen, you're a very honest guy, and I like the way you phrase it. We still, before it's too, and it's almost too late, because we were just talking off camera about a litany of different things, but obviously we do have those folks here we were talking about who insist on having illegal aliens who shouldn't be here in the first place. It's not bad enough that they're taking our resources, but now we're trying to let them vote as long as it's not a federal election. A judge just overturned that. Mayor Adams is actually fighting the city council on that, but they're going to keep pushing it and appealing it. I just don't understand how any elected official in good conscience can actually have any person vote for them and say, hey, I'm going to bring people here illegally, subsidize them, and then I'm going to go to court and fight for them to have an election. And it's just basically what everybody obviously knows, the Biden-Harris administration has basically opened the borders to basically buy people by giving them a citizenship to keep power, which are things that you would think would be done in a third world banana republic, but it's actually being done here in the principal city in our country. And the people of Queens, including the 28th district, are paying a heavy price. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to Udonis Rodriguez in Intro 1867, where illegals get to vote in municipal elections. That's number one.
That's crazy.
It doesn't make any sense. And then we have things like, for example, the City of Yes, which they're trying to push. The City of Yes has three components to it, right? We have the economic opportunity, we have the carbon neutrality aspect of it, and then the housing aspect of it. So when you put them all together, right, you're going to see that the city is the largest landlord, right? They have all of the migrants that came over here are costing the city about $20,000 per migrant because they get the EBT cards, they get the 5-star hotels, they
Education,
get
transportation.
education.
What don't we give them?
Right.
What don't we
give them everything, which is okay. We want to help people. We're not bad people, but the city is on the hook now for 30% of the budget. And
well, when you say the city, the taxpayer, the taxpayer.
Right.
Unfortunately, the taxpayers.
Right.
Yeah.
So with 200,000 to 300,000 migrants that are on our books, the city is on the hook for that because the federal government, Biden's administration, didn't give the city any money.
No.
So right now what we have is we have shelters, we have people in all the neighborhoods, and the city cannot afford it anymore because by law the budget has to be balanced. So what's going to happen is that the city needs to get all of these migrants off of the books. So everything with the City of Yes and all the legislation that's being passed right now is to put them on Section 8, which is funded by the state and the federal government, and then allow people to rent out their basements, their garages, their single room occupancies, their bedrooms.
If I could just stop you there. So here's a great point. So we all heard I believe de Blasio started and Adams continued saying, if you have an empty room, if you have an attic, a basement, make some extra money, put an illegal alien there that we don't know who they are, killers, rapists, terrorists, who knows who these people are. So if it's not bad enough, they're actually asking us to invite them into our homes, those of us who are crazy enough to do that. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, the point I'm making is the way that the City of Yes is tied in is, and we were talking about this a little earlier, is it's a way to go around Biden and Harris, who haven't funded the city for this problem, but it's a way for the state to backdoor fund it and basically alleviate the problem that Mayor Adams created, or basically put gas on fire.
Yeah, but it's more sinister than that because you got to understand, this was a plan to bring them over here. They didn't show up overnight. So,
yes.
There was a committee of contracts that City Council had about 2 years ago where they awarded about $230 million to not-for-profits to go and find housing for them. They already knew that they were coming here years ago. So that's why you see the bike lanes right now. See, the bike lanes were installed. That's part of the carbon neutrality aspect of the City of Yes. The City of Yes was voted down by the community boards, but the infrastructure is already being built, right?
Yes.
So, this was already decided for us a long time ago. So we have the illusion that we're being involved in the process, but they're doing it, they're ramming it down our throats. But we have to wake up now, and because City Council is going to vote on the City of Yes at the end of the year. The City Council is very progressive, very socialist, so they're going to say yes.
Oh.
But we have to do everything we can right now to stop them, and that's through the local elections.
So, good point that you made, Jonathan. What I would implore all of our viewers to do, whether you're in the 28th district or outside of it, contact the city council person that represents you. Let that man or woman know that you're not for this, especially if they're planning on, defending that seat or running for a higher office. Let them know that it's detrimental to your neighborhood, the city, your borough, wherever you live, because you did say it right. We have a bunch of radical Marxist, socialist, anti-American people. The majority of the city council, unfortunately, is garbage. So everybody out there, let these people know who represent you that you're not for it. And we've done some coverage on the City of Yes. I learn more and more every time I talk to somebody about it because it's a really big box of a lot of dirty tricks in there when you open it up and unwrap everything, so to speak. So I would just say, look into that. And on another note, while we're talking about that, there is going to be a meeting on Thursday, August 15th at 7:30 in Forest Hills. It's going to be at the Grace Lutheran Church. right behind Metropolitan Avenue on Union Turnpike by the Stop and Shop. I know Jonathan's going to be there, some other speakers and whatnot. So those of you in the community, I would implore you, if you are free, come down, listen, educate yourself. We covered an event recently a few months ago, and I was educated tremendously about a lot of things I had no idea about. And just to touch on the city of yes, the way I like to phrase it is a checkmark yes for all of the donors, the developers that have donated the most money to Mr. Adams. And basically you can have a small, tiny little residential area and you can put up a 10, 20, 30-story building with no infrastructure for the schools, plumbing, internet.
The sewers, there's a lot of flooding, Forest Hills floods.
Floods, yep.
They're not going to be able to do anything about that.
So obviously, when you get elected, you're not going to be a City of Yes person. I know you're going to push back on it, but it does look like, unfortunately, the City Council will approve it. God forbid that does happen, and sadly it looks like it's going to happen. What can folks like you who do get elected do at that point? How do we go backwards and erase the City of Yes and say no?
Well, first I wanted you touched on something of contacting your local elected officials.
Sure.
So one of the things that we're going to touch on at this meeting is how to contact your local elected officials. There's something called the Freedom of Information Act.
FOIL.
Law. Right? Some people call it FOIL, some people call it FOIA. Now, you have to just send an email and ask a question. Right? It's simple as that, to any of your elected officials. And legally, they have to respond to you in 5 business days. So I've seen that there's meetings where people have petitions and other ways of contacting your elected officials, but you have to do a FOIL request, which is you ask a question via email and they're legally responded. Now, if you can overwhelm your elected official by the entire constituency is writing an email to an elected official, that's how they're going to realize that they're going to need to change their position because their constituents won't elect them back in. So that also gives us a legal pathway because they have to go through the community boards, they have to do presentations, but the administrative process is our only real weapon against them, and then we need legal recourse. So if we're filing all these requests that by law they have to answer and they don't, then we have the ability to fight back. So the administrative process is how you have to contact them, and that's very important. That's something that we're going to do at this meeting. So in terms of when I get elected, the most important aspect that we have to really focus on is the money in the politics, right? Because a lot of these, like for example, the bike lanes that everybody can see, that comes from transportation alternatives and them donating money to the city council members so that they can write legislation to pass all of this stuff. You know, there needs to be an audit done. The money, the only real job of our government is to spend our money. They don't have control over our medical decisions. They don't have control over what we teach our children. They're only there to spend our money, hopefully within our interest.
Hopefully.
So somebody needs to get in there and start pulling the books out. Now, I am not a progressive socialist. I come already with a group, an infrastructure of people that were fired for not getting the vaccines. People who are up in arms about Assembly Bill 6761, which the incumbent, my opponent, had co-sponsored, which allows children, any child in school to get medical treatments, anything without parental consent, vaccinations, anything.
So if you're listening, guys, and you're in the 28th district, the incumbent right now, Mr. Hevesy, not the late one, but his son, the younger one, that's what he's for. I have a child in District 28, not just in the school district, but in this district that you're running for. And that's terrible to hear as a parent that the school can do a procedure without notifying, without parental consent, signature, that kind of stuff. To me, that's dangerous and that's just insane. So if you're a parent out there, a guardian, you're a grandparent, listen to what the man's saying. That is just something, I just find that to be so ill-conceived, so horrible, that you would actually allow, as an elected official of any party, that you would actually be for that. So if you're any parents out there, look into what that law is, look into what Mr. Hevesy is for, and obviously Jonathan's not for that, but how do we stop the overreach, like you said, the government's job, our elected officials, to spend our money? How do we stop these sick people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll sign a law, your kid any age can do anything they want in a public. How do we stop these crazy people?
Yeah, well, it's the administrative process. Let me just say that Adabo comes from a family who owns pharmacies. So with him and my opponent, they are making money hand over fist with the pharmaceutical companies. If you own a pharmacy and you're passing legislation to force inject the entire school system, you're getting money in your pocket. They have sold you out.
Can we just say conflict of interest?
Conflict of interest, sure. So really, the administrative process is, and what I mean by that, because it's hard to really understand what that is, but the people need to constantly send emails and visit their local elected officials. Everyone is so concerned with the federal government and the presidential race, but your assemblyman's office is down the block from you.
In your community.
In your community. Your councilman's office is down the block from you. Those are the people you can go and visit. They must open the door. They must speak to you. The elected officials work for we, the people.
And we pay them.
And they need to be reminded that they work for us and not for the not-for-profits and not for their donors. And they use many different means and methods to call the police on you, tell you that they can't take down your information. We all have
their procedure, their policy.
Right. We don't follow policy. We follow the law.
We follow the Constitution and our rights. Yeah. And we were talking about this a little earlier. How you've done some audits.
Yes.
And you were telling me you've had the police called on you. And at the end of the day, we all know that your policy or your procedures at your office or your facility does not supersede our rights as Americans, our constitutional rights.
Yeah, and we have a responsibility. Nobody is going to do that for you. Just because you vote someone in office, they're not doing anything, but you have to do it. You have to get empowered and involved. And let's and I just want to touch on this, and I want to say it now because Mayor Adams is the largest human trafficker that this world has ever seen.
Absolutely. Well, maybe Joe Biden, but okay.
No, yeah, there are hotels, shelters in all of our neighborhoods full of women and children that we do not know if they're with their parents. We do not know where they come from.
Well, I was reading an interesting story about some people who were working with those agencies, and they just said as long as an adult showed up and signed, even though they knew something was wrong, that's not a relative, a child, they knew it was a sex trafficking situation, that they were told, hand off, your job is to get rid of the kids to any adult. So I agree with you, other than the fact I would say maybe Biden and Harris are the biggest traffickers since they control the border, not Adams, but the fact that Mayor Adams is aware of this, the fact that we know there are women and young girls being trafficked here on Roosevelt Avenue, which is a stone's throw from here, and the fact that he was there several times, and they're selling drugs at hookers in the daytime there. Bro, it used to be in the nighttime, and they'd be like discreet. Now you just walk by like, hey, hookers, drugs, whatever. Fake IDs, fake passports. We did a lot of coverage over there, myself and Z, our producer, and I can tell you, nighttime, daytime, there's no difference. It's the Wild West, it's lawlessness, and we saw a mobile police station set up on Roosevelt and not too far from, I think it was Warren Street. And there were like 4 whorehouses operating right in front of a mobile police with a whole bunch of police cars with cops sitting out there. And it was just like...
Yeah. If you really want to know what the city of Yes looks like, take the 7 train to Roosevelt, walk around, and you'll see what they're trying to do. Weed stores for all our young boys and girls. Accessible with edibles and chemicals and all those drugs that are now available.
Chocolate mushrooms.
It's
crazy.
Open air prostitution all over the place.
24/7.
The only job for a woman in the city of Yes is prostitution. Look on the floor of Roosevelt Avenue. There's cards everywhere. Because what happens is when you cross the border as a woman, you have to pay back that $30,000-$40,000 that you promised the coyote. And the only way to pay that back is to sell your body. Now you're gonna be put into a contract of like 6 months to a year where you're gonna have to sleep with 4 or 5 men a night. This is the future we want for our girls, our children. And then in the schools with Assembly Bill 6761, you don't have, there's Proposition 1 that's coming out too. We don't have any control over what the kids are learning or what is going on. I believe that we need to stop worrying about offending people and start really fighting for our communities. Because if I don't want Forest Hills, Glendale, Middle Village, Rego Park, Kew Gardens to look like Roosevelt Avenue. And if you think that it's not coming here, it's already here.
Oh, it's slowly coming.
It's already here. Just go to Roosevelt Avenue. It's already here. So we all need to wake up. And I really want to stress people to come to the meeting so that we can educate ourselves and then start engaging in the administrative process and emailing our local elected officials, and I promise you we will see it change immediately.
No, listen, I would agree to all our viewers out there. I think one of the biggest takeaways up until this point of this conversation with Jonathan should be reach out to your elected officials. We know, not just the 28th district, we know this whole city is a mess. It's a third world city. I can say that confidently. It's a mess. There's no reason that everybody isn't emailing, calling, sending letters to their elected officials, because that's how these people get away with it. People are complaining. Everywhere you go, nobody's happy. But how many of you out there are harassing your local officials, emailing them, showing up at their office, calling them, sending a letter in the snail mail? How many of you people are signing a letter with all of your neighbors, people on your block, to say, hey, we've had enough. We don't want this. Fix this. Don't do that. So I think a big takeaway is people have to get up, reach out to these people. They work for us, not the other way around. They answer to us, not the other way around. And the only way we can stop this overreach of power and these people just doing things that are detrimental to our families, to our communities, to our city, people out there, you guys have to wake up. You guys have to mobilize. Reach out to these people. And another good thing you said, the FOIA. Request the information. They have to respond. We have rights as citizens where you have to ask questions. They have to answer. Don't let these people give you the runaround. And, shame them. If you're sending emails, if you're going in there, take notes, days and times who you spoke to, and then send it to us, send it to somebody else in the media, and shame these people for being elected officials who aren't doing good by their constituents.
Yeah, ask them for the voting record. Ask them for the list of the donors. Ask them straight up, do you support the city of Yes? I bet you if you send Lynn Shulman an email today asking her, do you support the city of Yes? Do you think she's going to answer you?
No.
Do you think if you ask Adabo how much money he got from his pharmacies during the COVID epidemic when he was mandating that your children get shots?
Let's talk about that a little bit if we may. So I've read a few stories recently. I'm glad you brought that up. And I really didn't know. Maybe I saw something I didn't pay attention. But he is making money off all these vaccines. Big pro-vaccine guy. His family owns pharmacies. They're in the pharmaceutical industry. Conflict of interest. How do more people not know about this? And should it be basically broadcast out there to the world that this is a conflict of interest? I mean, it's like, it's like one of these politicians in Washington who likes wars and they have all their stocks in a bullet company or a bomb company. It just seems to me to be corrupt, at least. It's corruption.
And it's sinister because do you know how the pharmaceutical companies and everyone involved during COVID, do you know how they escape liability? By adding the vaccine to the childhood vaccine schedule. That's how they eliminated themselves from liability. This is the kind of stuff that they know that they're doing to us. They know that. And look at Fauci. Fauci went to testify in front of Congress and basically said that all of that was made up. So where did these elected officials get their information when they were following all of the recommendations from the CDC? If somebody tells me what to do, I'm not going to just do what they say. These people failed us. They didn't have our back. They didn't look out for us. We have people that were fired in the fire department, the police department, teachers that don't have jobs, but yet people are coming over here and getting everything for free.
Speaking of that, with all this whole hoorah with the COVID, mask up, vaccinate, why are we letting millions, 20 million, who knows, 30 million people come across our border? No masks, no vaccine. We don't know who they are. We don't know what other sicknesses they have mentally or physically. But if it's such a big deal for us, why not for all these illegals we've been letting in?
Because there's two systems of justice right now. Everybody knows it. There's one system for us, the taxpayer, who's going to get hit over the head with tolls and congestion pricing and higher insurance premiums and higher costs at the groceries. And then we have another group of people that are just getting away with everything. They get arrested, they get let out. They don't even know who they are. They can't even come to court. But a taxpayer, you try not to pay 6 tickets, they'll tow your car, they'll arrest you.
Yep.
They pull you over with not having a suspended license. Maybe you forgot to pay a ticket and you go to jail. For Easy Pass, do you know that if you don't pay your Easy Pass, your credit gets screwed? So when they put congestion pricing for the low-income families that need to drive to go to work and they can't afford the tolls, there goes all their credit, there goes their automobile, there goes their chance at home ownership. Why are we being attacked? Why are we the ones under attack while everybody else? Look what happened in London recently.
Oh, boy.
The other day in London, all of the migrants walked out in the street with knives and machetes and went out, and you don't have to believe me, go look it up, and went to attack the community.
He's not. I saw a lot. They've been censoring it, but I did see a lot of
Whatever
stuff.
happens in Europe, we're like 3 or 4 years before it happens here. That's just the way it goes.
Sad but true.
So do you want a group of military-age men in the Herc sites, like in Creedmoor, where it's, because I've been there, to be full of 18 to 30-year-olds, men, without families, because there is no family? You want them to rise up when they can't afford, when the city's bankrupt and can't refill their ABT cards? What happens when they can't get their groceries? What happens when all the metal...
What happens when they cut their debit cards?
What happens when they cut
out
their debit
all
cards?
their 5-star hotels?
What happens when they have to get kicked out of the Herc sites? They're going to be out in the street.
Well, we've already seen instances here where they're demanding we do more, and they didn't want to leave hotels when Adams put that 30, 60-day notice, whatever that was. So, look, my point to this is nothing that we're doing is beneficial to the citizens. Doesn't matter if you're retired, you're fat, skinny, black, white, you're gay, you're straight. This is detrimental to everybody, and it's not sustainable, and it's insane. Like, you talk to people in other countries, other cities, other states, and they're like, they can't believe that our leaders, and I'm not talking about Biden and Harris and Washington, I'm talking about state and city officials, are embracing this sanctuary city, embracing where our kids don't have resources in school, our roads are third world, potholes, craters. I mean, the streets in Afghanistan are better because we paved them with our money. And we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot, and nothing is sustainable. And that's a great question, Jonathan. What happens when, poof, the city goes bankrupt, because that's coming, and all these people here on a free ride that are of military fighting age decide to pull out their knives and riot and burn the city down and kill everybody? What happens at that point when you pull the free rug underneath them? Well, are they just going to pack up and go back to where they came from? I don't think so.
What happens when one of these men violate your daughter? Because it's already happened. There was a girl that was raped the other day. God forbid.
Countless times.
God forbid.
Well, what just happened in Casino Park recently?
Yeah.
Well, we had an illegal alien tie up the brother and sister with shoestrings or a belt and made the boy watch while he raped the sister.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was an illegal alien, and not too long ago, there was a love triangle here in Forest Hills. The woman was killed here in Forest Park, the body. That was an illegal alien, the boyfriend who chopped her up and killed her. But the media goes out of their way to not say who. Even when there's a horrible something in the police, they shoot the cops or they do something horrible, some crime. Why is it that they almost hide or suppress that was an illegal alien? It's like almost like they don't want to say it because it doesn't make Adams and our elected officials and hapless Hochul look good. So I understand that we have a problem with the radical city council. We have horrible Congress, horrible senators, but we also have a horrible governor. When you get elected, what is your game plan? If so, she's obviously horribly corrupt. You saw what she did with the Buffalo Bill Stadium, her husband. To get to her, you got to go through her husband now. He retired. He's her. I guess he's the big guy in Albany. What's your game plan being someone who's not a crook, who's not corrupt, who has a good heart, that wants to do the right thing? What is your game plan to deal with Governor Hochul? Because you will have to deal with her in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing anyone can do is they are ridiculously corrupt, right? And they're sloppy. And the problem is that the Democratic power structure has control over the prosecutors, has control over all of the ones that are going to be able to hold them accountable. So in reality, you just have to expose through the independent media, through outlets like yourself, because the information, I have a lot of the election issues, like the petitioning, the forgeries in the petitioning. I have all of the information. It's just that it needs to be disseminated to the public.
And we were talking about, I'm not going to speak to it, we were talking privately, and he does have a lot of information. I'll let you talk with you, but there's a lot of nonsense going on and a lot of bad behavior that has to stop.
It just needs to be exposed, and it needs to be exposed to the people, and they need to know what's going on, because one person like me going up against the power structure,
so David Goliath.
It's almost impossible, but they have a track record and evidence because they're public officials. We just have to gather the documents through the administrative process and present it to the people and make the people aware, and they need to be voted out because they keep on. Governor Hochul was the governor's, whatever, she worked with the governor.
Lieutenant number 2.
Right, but the governor was kicked out for sexual harassment. He also put
she had no idea. She's number 2, but she has no idea.
She put COVID patients in old age homes. Cuomo was responsible for deaths, and she was
misery
right there
and suffering.
with him.
Yep.
But she gets elected. So what do you think? She just is supportive of 201, which
Tell,
is
tell the audience about 201.
yeah. So 201. I mean, you can say these things to people. They think that we're lying, but
No,
201.
these are real things people should be looking at.
201 is the governor's plan that even if you're suspected of being sick, they will come and quarantine you.
Now, if I could just catch up for one sec, Jonathan. We recently did a very powerful interview with Jim Maraguez, who is basically the anti-vax, anti-lockdown lawyer. And we spoke with him about that, and that's basically where it's FEMA-style concentration camps, for a lack of terminology, where the barbed wire is facing in to keep you in, not to keep you out like it's a warehouse you don't want criminals to rob. And basically, without any due process, any judge, any jury, anything, she could say, you're whatever, and you get off to the gulags. Isn't that something that happens in Maduro's Venezuela, Putin's Russia, somewhere in the Congo, somewhere maybe in Port-au-Prince, Haiti? Isn't this something that happens in a third world country? And now in New York State, we have a dangerous dictator, hapless Hochul, as I call her, an accidental governor who, how the hell she won against Zeldin last time, I don't know. But she basically can send the stormtroopers in here, take you, me, and Z, throw us in the back of some blacked out vehicle, and dump us in a concentration camp with no recourse.
But they also did it in Australia. So, I mean, it's not like only in the third world countries, but you tell people that. Like, you explain that to people, and it seems like ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, they're like, no, that's not. It's in the text of these bills. You know what I mean? And people don't realize how close we were from being rounded up during COVID anyways. The whole reason why I decided to run is because I kept getting kicked out of restaurants with my kids. And I had to explain to them, because my ex-wife is from Haiti, so my kids are mixed. I had to sit down and teach them that whatever it is, this is nothing to do with your race, color, religion. This is ideological. You either believe in this country, you believe in our freedom, or you believe in a totalitarian socialist system where in reality you will have nothing, you will own nothing, you will be happy, and you will do what you're told. And that is not America. That is not the heart blood of Glendale and Middle Village and Forest Hills.
Nope.
It is not what we're about, and I will not turn over our system of government to these people, and we have to fight back. So the only thing that I can really do is be just as radical as the socialists are, but be as radical for us and fight for our interests. And that's what I will do every single day, and I will not sell out, because selling out for a couple of dollars does nothing for my kids' future, does nothing for my grandkids' future, and we need to have these people held accountable.
And I'm glad you said that. You're not going to sell out. You're a real guy. It's not going to do anything for your future, my future, our family's future. But what we have to touch on what you said about Mr. Joseph Abato making money off these vaccines, the pharmaceutical conflict of interest, corruption, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, that's just one example. We could probably sit here and go to a lot of elected officials, state, city, and nationally that have made better stock trades than Warren Buffett. Surprise, surprise, right? So what can we do going forward? Because even something so simple like term limits that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, most people want them. We don't want to see Pelosi and McConnell and people like that, no matter what side of the aisle, for 30, 40 years and just staying there till they drop dead. We don't want to see that. But those people who vote on those things won't vote on that against themselves. So how can we obviously have term limits here for a mayor. We have term limits for a lot of different, president has term limits, obviously, 2 times. How can we get enough people like you elected to get those bodies of government to vote and say, yes, even though it affects me, I'm going to vote for a term limit because I shouldn't be here and you shouldn't be here for 30, 40, 50 years until you die?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the difficult aspect of it, because we're under weaponized, social, biological engineering, and we have to break free from that. So, it comes down to, understanding that you as an individual in your own community, you have to understand that you're in an election district, which is within an assembly district, which is within a state senatorial district, which is within a city council district. You have to run for county committee and district leader. And when you form a party or join in as existing infrastructure for a party, there shouldn't be any vacant seats. There should not be. Every single assembly district, every single vacancy should have had a Republican candidate. Okay, now why is it that didn't happen? Why is it that there are in Ridgewood, a radical socialist is running for assembly with no opposition? There's no Republican candidate. That stuff can't happen. And then people really just have to empower themselves. They have to just get off of their phones. They have to, stop worrying about your feelings and really understand that you can't appease these people. They want you dead. Like they do. They're ideological different from you. They don't think that you're a person with bad ideas. They think you're a bad person with ideas. Do you understand? They don't want you involved, and they have the infrastructure. They own the ground game. So people just have to, and it's very difficult.
Sure.
But we have to do it one meeting at a time, one independent media outlet at a time, and we just have to disseminate the information and hope that the people will wake up and then vote in their interests and not listen to what the TV is telling you.
So, as you were saying, Jonathan, people have to get off their phones. I agree. I know a lot of people, and I'm personally speaking, family and friends, people I know, a lot of people don't like to look into things and talk about it because it gets them upset. It's stressful. It's aggravating. Because if we look at what our elected officials are doing, and I'm speaking here just in New York State, New York City, it's not rosy. It's horrible. There's nothing we could say that they're doing or they've done or they're working on that's going to benefit us. It's all horrible stuff. And I truly believe that a lot of these elected officials from the city, state, up to the national level, unfortunately, hate our country, hate our way of life, hate us. They don't value anything here. And they're here to destroy us because if you look what people are doing from the local, city, state, and federal level, you cannot, with a good conscience, do something so bad to your country, your state, your city, your community if you're not trying to destroy it. Am I wrong to say that?
No, because, and here's something that a good friend of mine always told me, was that look at who are the city council members that are voting for this. They're all minority. They're all Black and Spanish and Indian, and they are elected by those communities, and they're the ones that are hurting you the most. They will give you someone that looks like you, right? They will give you someone that looks like Abato got his greased back hair. He looks like a real part of the neighborhood, and like congestion.
But he's far from a real part of the
Right,
neighborhood.
it's like congestion pricing is a crime against people of color. And all of the city council people that are pushing all of this are people of color. They are attacking their own kind in their own communities. So that's what someone really needs to wake up from.
And those people in those communities of color, like you said, are unfortunately going to be people who are more towards the bottom of the economic ladder.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt their pockets more than, let's say, somebody who's living in Park Avenue, who's a banker or a hedge fund guy. He could absorb that, or someone living in Connecticut commuting in, maybe Greenwich or somewhere in a nice suburb in Jersey or even Long Island. But those folks are at the bottom of the economic pole, or the totem pole, so to speak, and they're going to be paying more of a price, no pun intended, because they're suffering already from these failed economic policies. And now all of us are going to suffer because we're paying taxes on roads and bridges to maintain them, yet we're being taxed, and now we're being taxed. This is like North Korea. You have to get permission to travel from one place to another, except now we need to pay to go into Manhattan. I mean, it's insanity, and the reason I believe Hapless Hochul stopped it, she saw how unpopular it was with an election coming up just in a few months in November, and I believe once the election's over, no matter how the chips fall, that'll be the first thing she puts back on the table.
I mean, John Liu is Asian, right? I mean, Sylvina Brooks Powers is Black, right? Donovan Richards is Black. He's our borough president, but he gave all your social services away. He goes to the HERC sites and gives them free scooters, and he gives them free everything. They're giving away our public housing. I mean, these are the people that are supposed to, you think that they represent you, but they don't. And it's so messed up and evil that they use
their own people. They use us all.
They use your own people
Everybody.
against you, and that's one of the things people really have to wake up against. And that's the reality of it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, as I like to call him, disastrous Donovan Richards. I'm sure our audience knows I'm no fan of his. I think he's destroyed Queens. He hasn't done anything good. And if you watch our previous, coverage, that's why I'm wholeheartedly endorsing a gentleman named Henry Acasey. But I'm glad you brought him up because I think he's just horrible. I mean, every policy, everything he's done to bring shelters and bring illegal aliens and all kinds of other crap to Queens, it's just a dumping ground, right? I mean, the people of Queens, we have to wake up. We are the dumping ground for shelters for our own. We're the dumping ground for illegal alien shelters. we're the dumping ground for the city of yes. And it's just like, I just feel like this borough always has its guard up. We're just getting punched all the time from everywhere. And I believe, and then what irks me is, I actually saw recently in the last month or two, Donovan Richard showed up to protest the shelter, but you wouldn't come to protest the shelter in Regal Park. Shame on you. So he does it when it's convenient for him, but he's not full-heartedly in there, because if he did, he would do his best to clean up Queens, and he's done nothing but to destroy our borough.
Yeah, and I just want to say, there's only one shelter that was shut down in all of Queens, and that's when we went to protest the Q Motor Inn. That
Please tell the audience.
The iconic Q Motor Inn Hotel, where I went there with a group of my people, and we had them come out and say they weren't going to take the migrants. And that was a win, just as a candidate. As a candidate, I was able to shut down one of the migrant shelters.
So, and congratulations for that. So, to our viewers, whether you can vote for the man in the 28th district or not, him and his own people have shut down one shelter. This is the only story I've heard of anybody in Queens or the city who could say, hey, I went on my own accord and stopped the shelter from happening.
Yeah.
So for that, congratulations. That's a major milestone, because I can go back in history here in Queens. Pan American Hotel on Queens Boulevard used to be the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
That's been a homeless shelter for years. Horrible. We've had people from that community support us here in Regal Park fighting the Wyndham shelter. And they told us what it did to their property value, their community, their safety. Now, fast forward, we see Vicky Paldino fighting, I think, the Anchor Inn on Northern Boulevard and Bayside, which was another creme de la creme hotel. That, I believe, is already a full-fledged illegal alien hotel or homeless hotel. So I just like to implore to our viewers, especially those in Queens, no matter where you are, no matter if you're in the 28th district or not, everybody in this borough has to wake up. The people that are in charge are destroying our communities.
Yeah, and the thing people have to realize about this country is, believe me, if I was in office and I heard a shelter was going to be there, I would have my entire community park their cars and block that. Do the elected officials, are they held accountable? Do they actually do anything? Are they ever going to just put their neck out there for you? Because all of this
Well,
stuff
if you're a pharmacy company, Joseph Abato will.
Right. So all this stuff is happening right under your nose, but you're sitting there as if you don't know what's going on. No, it's your fault. Okay? It's your fault. And you need people like me in office that are not going to take it from them. And I will do everything in my power, in as much as if I have to take a spray can and cover the speed cameras because we're getting hit with money that's going to a private organization like the MTA, I will cut those things down myself. I don't have a problem
I'm with you on that, brother.
I will go over there with a sledgehammer and break the concrete barriers that are on Queens Boulevard down the block from where I live. I don't care anymore. We have to get up and take our city back because they are taking it from us. They are doing everything in their power to shut us down, and we have to not take it anymore.
And we're being steamrolled. Into
steamrolled.
oblivion, Queens. Into oblivion. And you know, because you said that, and I'm with you on that. Believe me when I tell you, I don't have any problem with that. But then someone's going to twist it and say he's a violent person, he's a radical, he's some lunatic or something like that. No, the people have had enough. You can't drive on Queens Boulevard. You could be in a wheelchair and go faster on Queens Boulevard than a person in a car. You've basically created the bicycle loans, the city of yes, which is a joke. And we have a small minority of people who ride them, and that's not even half the year. There's nobody using them. They're still riding illegally, not stopping at red lights the wrong way, hitting people. I had a friend of mine was hit, put in the hospital, one of those motorcycles. It's enough already. And the fact that we were talking earlier when our last previous leader here, Kappelman at the 112th, was brazen enough to show they took one scooter off and put it on his Twitter, that boiled my blood because I could find 100 of them in my sleep.
Yeah. In 2030, Local Law 97 hits. In 2035, every car has to be electric in the city. Do you know that in 10 years, you are going to have to spend about $100,000 to $200,000 to comply with the city? People are not even aware that that's going to happen. Do you have $100,000 by 2030 to convert? If you live in a co-op, a lot of the buildings are co-ops.
Yeah, talk about that, please.
They just made you convert your boilers from oil to gas. Now they're going to make you convert your boilers from gas to electric. Well, not only your boilers, but your heating system.
So what does that do to your HOA fees or your co-op fees? Would you dare tell our audience?
Okay, because I was telling the people in the co-ops, your rent is going up, your HOA fees. Once the HOA spends all their money, They don't have anymore, and who's going to give it to them? It's your money.
The shareholders of the building.
The shareholders. Yeah. Everyone is in the hole for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And just because the city's going to let you rent out your basement for $2,000, that's not going to cover all of the fines and fees and all of the stuff that's going to happen when you're forced to convert your stove to electric. Does anybody like cooking on electric? What happens to all the businesses? What happens
the ones that survived COVID.
Right. What happens to Brighties when the building department comes in here and makes them change their grills to electric? What is going on here? All of our businesses are going to get shut down. We're not going to be able to, now, if you have someone that lives in your home and you can't pay the mortgage, well, guess who leaves and guess who gets to stay? Right? That's another thing you got to realize. The city is not going to give you those tenants that pay rent. They need to get these people off the books. When they give you that Section 8, they're giving you the worst of the worst tenants you can imagine. The ones that don't leave when you need to evict them.
The ones that destroy the unit.
The ones that destroy your unit. And then when you have all of these additional people on your block, when the Gardens has a 10-story building put up right next.
You know what? Say that again, because, and I'm not trying to pick on anyone, the Gardens. It's obviously a very beautiful neighborhood modeled after the English Gardens of England. Very beautiful homes, very expensive. They're paying a tremendous amount of property tax. Okay, and I'm not knocking on anybody. But say that to them, because we have a lot of stuff coming, at least on the Regal Park side. They haven't had a shelter in that area yet. And they haven't had anything with the city of Yes. But what would it do to that beautiful little quaint area if one of the developers who donated to Mr. Adams would say, hey, here's a checkbox, put a 20-story building up on South Greenway or some other lovely street over there.
And they're changing the zoning to where you don't have to add any parking. So like on Fleet or Exeter or Mance or wherever, and they put a 10-story building there where nobody's gonna be able to park. Plus, with the economic opportunities, you're gonna be able to put a supermarket right in the middle of Lubet if you want. Like what? Is that really what you want for your neighborhood? And especially like on Juniper Valley Park, let's just say, for example, you have, the ice cream trucks, you have all of the companies that sell food and all that stuff, but then you have illegal vendors who store their Italian ices in their cars with black mold that'll poison you. So again, why is there two systems of justice? You have all the homeowners, all the business owners that are paying out the rear. And then now with the city of Yes, you're going to have all these illegal vendors. You're going to have everybody that's on the highway selling mangoes and all that stuff. They're going to be everywhere. They're going to be in
all the illegal mobile car washes,
all
the illegal
mobile
food
car
trucks.
washes, the food trucks. It's going to be everywhere. And they're not going to add any parking. They're not adding any schools. They're not adding any fire department. They're not adding anything. They're just putting in as many people as they can into your house because there's a line. Everybody's from all over the world are coming to New York because of the bad policies of the mayor and the city council.
And the governor.
And the governor. So we need somebody that, and if you, like I said, you want to call me whatever you want to call me, but they're purposely doing these things to you right in front of your face, and you're allowing it, and you're not saying anything.
We as a society are letting them steamroll us.
Yeah.
And look, I think if anybody out there takes away anything from this conversation we're having, is wake up, especially you guys in Queens, and people throughout the city and the state, but wake up if you're in Queens County, see what's happening, see what is proposed by your elected officials, see what they're for, ask them for their records, because how many people do we know who bitch and moan and complain and say everything's shit? And I agree with them, but how many of you out there who are complaining to your spouse or your neighbor or your friends or your coworker are actually calling, visiting, emailing, sending a letter to your elected officials and holding them accountable? Probably not many, unfortunately.
Nobody does it.
Very few people. Now, I can tell you, I'm a real SOB, and I bother a lot of my elected officials for things, but I'm one of a small group of people. I have a few neighbors of mine. We have an issue right now with a mail carrier who's rude and disgraceful and not fit for duty, so we're mobilizing our little area of the community. But most people out there read the newspaper, watch our videos, and I think a lot of people out there are mad and would agree with us that this is all detrimental to us. But how many of you and how many of you guys out there that are watching and not watching are going to actually pick up a phone, send a letter, send an email, visit one of these elected officials, and do something to help our kids, our grandkids, our future? That's the question. So I think, there's a lot of great things we spoke about, but I think the biggest reason why we're in this hole as a city, as a state, even as a country, most people out there aren't reaching out to these people. And look, you're a real guy. You said you're not going to take any money from someone that's going to be detrimental. So obviously, I don't think the Joseph Abato Pharmacy Company is reaching out to you to give you any donations or anything like that. But give the viewers out there, Hevessy's had this seat for a while. I personally just get a mailer every so often, like most of these elected people, with some photo ops every quarter, half a year. But I personally don't see anything he's done for the community. Give the contrast between what the difference would be with the continuing down this path for the District 28, which is not a good path, and what you would bring, Jonathan. Give the viewers out there who are in this district, who can pull that lever, paint a picture for them what the difference would be replacing Hevesy with you.
Well, I think it just comes down to really the bills that you can sponsor or co-sponsor. I mean, I have them here. I mean, there's bills, like I have this book with me all the time, like A6761 allows any youth under 18 to consent to medical procedure without parental
Parents,
consent.
are you listening to that, parents?
There's state senate bills like S1531, mandatory vaccine databases. There's bills like A2905, medical exemptions from vaccine mandates to attend school should not be under direct control. Like, look,
He's got a whole book, guys.
like
This is a whole
you can sit there and write all the bills that you want that benefit your donors, benefit the not-for-profits. I basically would have to sit there and write bill after bill after bill after bill to get the people who were fired for not taking a vaccine back into work, get them into leadership positions, write bills to make sure that that there's term limits, write bills that say that local positions have more power than the state or than the federal government. Like, there's a way through the administrative process to write the legislation to counter all of this legislation that has been put in place to remove our rights, to remove our fundamental ideological understanding of what our community is and what we do. So that's really what I'll be doing, is sitting there and just writing bill after bill after bill to reinforce our rights, to reinforce our ability to take back the control, the overreaching control of the government, where the government can never again tell me what I can and can't do with my body in reality, when it comes down to my real medical decisions, where I don't have to tell the school district what my child's medical history is. Now, if you're one of those parents that are so afraid, well, do whatever you want to your kid. You should be protected, so don't worry about mine. The money should follow the student. If I'm sick and tired of the Board of Education teaching children things that I don't agree with, well then that attendance sheet, that money that's supposed to go to my child, if I want to put them into religious instruction, then that money should follow the child, and I should be able to put my kid in Catholic school or to synagogue or to teach them Muslim instruction, whatever. The money should follow the student. This is where we have to direct the policy. This is where we have to direct what position holds, because again, it's the assembly seat is the most local seat that you can hold. It's the most connected to the community, and quite frankly, like I was saying, our country is built from the bottom up. We have the most amount of say locally than from federally, and that's just the reality of it. So if we decide that we don't want to participate in the city of Yes, if we decide that we don't want bike lanes, if we decide that we don't want speed cameras, then we don't get to have them, and that's the way our country and our government's supposed to work. And that's what I'm going to be doing, making sure that we retain our power as a community.
And I'm very glad you mentioned all that stuff, and I agree with you. The speed cameras are something that comes up over and over again with a lot of the folks that are running that we've done interviews with. And, I wouldn't have a problem if it was during school hours in a school zone. Sure, I don't want anyone speeding around my kid's school. I'm sure most people feel the same way. But 24 hours, and when they're adding hundreds and hundreds, it seems like a month. And it's a money grab. And that money's not going to fix the roads. It's not going to help our community. It's not going to help it's going to some nefarious person or organization.
Going to the MTA, which is a private organization. That's what people have to understand.
Let's talk about the MTA, the largest transportation network agency in the world, the biggest budget, and please stop me if I'm saying anything out of context, the most poorly run, corrupt, and basically the one that wastes the most revenue. Am I wrong to say that?
Yeah, like look at the members who come to the MTA hearings in their $5,000 suits. They don't even live in the district. They're redesigning. I went to the bus redesign hearing, right? And the person who's designing that doesn't even live in the city. And not to mention the reason why they want to skip stops. I told them at the hearing that the buses are for the children, the elderly, and the disabled, and that should not be cut. But because the city is such in a financial bind because of mismanagement, they want to skip bus stops to sell the bus stop and the public property to City Bike, to Lyft, parking for the taxi.
And then where do we put the snow, right? And then look, we had spoken with some firemen off the record, because a lot of the city workers just shake when you ask a talk, even off the record. And I always encourage anyone to contact us if they want to divulge any corruption or tips to us, because we're not afraid to speak. Mayor Adams doesn't scare us. But we had spoken with a lot of folks who basically won't talk to us on camera, even off the record. They're scared. So how do we stop that, where we can't even get city employees who are seeing a waste of money, corruption, being told to stand down, told to do the wrong thing, told not to do the... How do we, as a society, get these people? And I'm not saying they have to go public and blow the whistle, but we can't even get them to talk to us off camera, with the camera off. And I'll give you an example. I don't want to say what area, but we stopped by recently in front of one of the firehouses in Queens. A couple of the guys came out, nice guys. We assured them the camera was off. It was pointed down, which is true. And I asked them about a major thoroughfare in Queens that is barricaded everywhere. And I said, that must impede when seconds count. That must impede. And he goes, we can't talk at all, but I'm just going to say we voiced our concern. It's a shit show. I'm sorry, we can't talk. We're afraid to get fired. How do we get these people to freely talk to us, or even discreetly talk and share the bad news that the citizens don't know?
Well, I can simply write a bill, if I needed to, saying that any person that works in the city is free to voice any opinion they have, and that if anyone does anything to them, then they'll be held accountable. I mean, these are the things that you can do in office. You can put whatever text you want in a bill.
And that's a great idea. And the only time we've ever heard anyone say I could write a bill. So I hope you do write that bill. That would be a great bill to protect people.
I mean, I can write anything I want. I mean, that's the beauty of this country. If they're writing bills with that text that say specifically that a parent doesn't have the right on what their child does, then I can write a bill that says that any city employee can voice their opinion without getting punished for it. So it's really that simple. This is still America. We can still do whatever we want, and we have to cherish that and save it for the future generation.
And you would agree with me, that's no accident that Adams has tightened the screws a lot more than his predecessor, de Blasio, where people who work for the city, they shake when we could go with our camera off, private conversation, and they'll literally tell us we're afraid to get fired, we're afraid to lose, get demoted. Adams has made it a point to silence us. Like, we hear it from whether they work for the Parks Department, whether they work for NYPD, FDNY, ambulance drivers. I mean, we've approached so many of them, and so many of them spoke to us, and they're just terrified. They shake. And I don't want to see anyone get fired, but we have to get these people who know more than the average citizen, who can shed light on these bad practices, this abuse, this corruption, this incompetency. We have to get those people to speak out.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the city workers is that, in order to implement a lot of these things, like the City of Yes, it's already started. So the people that work in the city, because it's such a large organization, that's one of our biggest resources, because they have already been instructed to start implementing a lot of this. So it's so important for them to have the freedom to speak, because they already started doing all of this stuff. So we need them to tell us what's going on. So, it's important to protect everyone, keep our freedom of speech, keep everything on the up and up, and root out all the corruption that we can, wherever we can find it.
No, well said. And if I could just ask again, I don't think I've ever asked anyone this particular question, and you're free to answer or not. Is there anybody that you either spoken to, or maybe even just foresee, just thinking internally, that is either running or that is currently holding a seat on any side of the aisle that you think could be someone you could, we hear a lot of common sense these days. So is there somebody that you have in mind, maybe you've spoken to, or you have a thought about that, hey, I could work with that man, I could work with that woman, they seem to be aligned, on an even playing field? Anybody that you think you could potentially, team up with to benefit more people throughout the city?
I think the problem with politics and with is that there's too much money associated with it. You know, when you need to run for office, you need to raise funds. And people don't raise funds. They don't go and knock on the doors and get the $10 from the residents. It's easy to get a check from a not-for-profit. And then once you do that, you're basically beholden to the donor.
They have something in your hand, right?
Yeah. So it's really like each district, you know, each district you just have to focus on. And, you know, I want to work with everybody. I don't I want everybody to be good. But you just have to look at everyone's voting record. You got to see who's donated to them. I know that Brandon Castro is running, I think, in the 30th Assembly District.
I believe so.
Yeah, he's like 2 districts over. You know, I'm working with him. There's Dwayne Moore, who's also running for Assembly.
All folks that we've interviewed.
Yeah, like awesome guy. All young, you know, strong young people that are doing really good things. I mean, you know, got Marilyn Miller, who ran for city council. She's a retired cop. She's, you know, on the right side of things, you know, out there fighting. I mean, you have to go with all of the non-endorsed people. The people that get kicked out of the meetings, the people that you're told to stay away from, the people that you're told to watch out for, those are probably the ones that you want to team up with most of the time.
The the ones who haven't been corrupted.
Right. The ones that are new, the ones that are not part of the establishment, those are the ones like even Ike, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, these are the ones we got to get behind.
People with good intentions and are looking to destroy us further.
Right. Because, you know, that's what people don't get. Like, people get elected to office and they think that seat's theirs. It's the people's seat. It's not Lynn Shulman's seat. It's not Hevesi's seat. It's not Adabo's seat. It belongs to the people. It belongs to us. And they work for us, and they're just a placeholder. If they get out of line, then you're fired. You're out of there. Public service, you have to go into public service because you hate what's going on. I don't want to be a career politician. I just want to go in there because I see there's a need and we have to fight back. It's not something that you want to make a career out of. That's where people, you know, the term limits come into effect. So I just want to get in there, expose the corruption, do what I have to do, and if the people want me there again, fine, but I'm not looking to get in there to be in there forever. I just want to write the bills and fix all the wrongs that I see are going on.
So when you don't want to be there forever, admirable to say that, and you don't want to be a career politician. You rarely hear that, anyone running, which is admirable. Would you want to hand the battalion off to a younger person after you, maybe, after you're there X amount of time and feel like, hey, I've done what I could do, it's time for me to leave, I want to maybe endorse somebody to take my seat, or?
I think civics is a very important thing that people, you know, one of the things that I can write a bill on is to make sure that civics is taught in the schools. Like, civics and government is really important. Like, everybody should know the process. There shouldn't be an instance where someone is running unopposed. You should have a primary. You should have to go up against...
Well, hold on. When you run unopposed, isn't that North Korea, Venezuela?
Pretty much.
The Congo, you know, Haiti, places like that, yeah.
You should have to primary. Tons of people. Everybody should want a gun for that seat and create that competition. So I just want to empower the people with the information on how to register, how to run for office, how to be a county committeeman, how to be a district leader, and give the people the tools and empower them to get out there and do it. So I don't want to pass the baton to one person. I want to educate a generation so that civics is part of our culture and that we can hold corrupt people accountable and make sure that they're answering to us.
No, great answer. And speaking of education and civics, what, if anything, or any ideas would you have to counter, and I speak about this a lot, the indoctrination of our young people to go towards communism, socialism? Like, they hate America, they want to burn our flag, they'll wave the flag of our enemies, you know, especially in the higher education, unfortunately, and they take our money. And, you know, we have these radical professors, if they're not pulling a machete on a post reporter, they're burning a police car, or something like that. Is there anything that you've thought of or you could do? And I know obviously you can write all the bills, but you need other of your other of your colleagues to sign them. Maybe if you're a professor and you work for the city and you can't burn down public property, you get fired, or you can't teach the country's horrible, or, you know, say we're all the devil. Like, is there anything that comes to mind you could do to alleviate this crazy indoctrination that takes place?
Well, unfortunately, symbols are there to conceal, but they're also there to reveal. I mean, the thing about the truth is you can't ever tell anyone the truth. They have to be ready to seek it out, you know, and that's really like the paradox and the irony of all of this, you know. So, you know, right now with the socialists and the communists, they, they have very specific social engineering things that they do that we're basically under. And, they're able to get away with it because of our freedoms. So the one thing that we don't want to do is start eliminating our freedoms to counteract the indoctrination. We really just have to locally, election district by election district, painstakingly educate one election district at a time. And that's really the only thing that we can do. There's no one big overarching stroke. It's, take the bills with you, right? Show it to them. To explain to them the FOIL request process. Start getting the people, and it has to be done little by little.
So
it's not being
counter
done
by education.
by education, but also empowering. Like look at me, I'm just some guy from Austin Street. Like I read the book on how to run for office, and look at me. It's just me.
And we spoke about this off camera, so
Yeah.
that's a true story. And you're not sitting behind a vast team of operatives that are doing everything for you, and you're not sitting here with advisors and campaign managers.
Yeah. Do you know why I'm able to run for District 28? Because there was nobody running. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Like there was no Republican candidate.
But what does that say? It's not just the only seat. What does that say to the GOP in the city and the county, where they're just letting seats go without anyone challenging anybody?
Well, I like to akin it to like a baseball manager, right? I mean, everyone's a Yankee or a Met fan over here, right? Like, if your team isn't making the playoffs year after year after year, then the manager has to go. I think that there's a leadership problem within the GOP. I think the people that are in power have been there for way too long. They have all the connections tied in with the Board of Elections, tied in with the civic associations. But when you explain to them, how is it that the Queens GOP not only had vacant assembly seats, but also had candidates kicked off the ballot because they couldn't make it? You know what I mean? There is a leadership problem right now. And I'm sorry, like, even if you're the greatest guy in the world and you don't do your job, then you shouldn't be there.
Well, giving you back to your baseball analogy, we saw what happened with the legendary Joe Torre at the Yankees not so long ago, where, hey, time to go. And unfortunately, as great as he was, when he started to not bring those rings in.
Yeah, the job of the leadership of the Queens County GOP is to get district leaders, is to get them to go and bring candidates forward. Go on the website, you'll see their vacancies for district leaders. God forbid, if anyone that I knew was in charge, even if I was the chair of the Queens GOP, God forbid I had a vacancy on a district leader position or an assembly seat, I would be embarrassed. I would be ashamed of myself. So this is what we have. We really have to hold people to a certain standard. All of the standards have been kind of dropped across the board, right? Anybody can get away with whatever they want, not do their job, and never be held accountable because there is no one holding them accountable. So we have to change that. So that's the problem with Queens right now. There really isn't an effort by leadership to bring forth candidates, to fill vacancies. So that's probably one of the things that needs to be worked on the reorganization coming up. But if we can get that going, and we have to knock on the doors. Fundraisers, rallies, none of that makes sense.
So speaking of, I know you're running against Hevesi, who's a entrenched incumbent, to say the least, and I'm sure he's not knocking on doors for those $10 checks that we spoke about, getting big money. Maybe Mr. Babu's giving him some money from the pharmacy industry. Is it a daunt? And I know you're a very tough guy, just talking to you, and a very smart guy, and you're a fighter. But is it daunting at all when you think about you're going up against someone like an old tree with roots there, establishment? I'm sure his war chest, whatever he has, outweighs yours, unfortunately. How do you counter that? I know you're obviously not looking to sell out and call Pfizer and get a big check tomorrow. But as the underdog, as a little guy who's fighting for the people, how do you counter that? And then mentally, what do you say to yourself? You're like, hey, I'm going up against an establishment guy with a big war chest compared to how do you balance that out and just keep swinging and fighting every day?
Brute force. Make a flyer, make 1,000 of these. You go to the International Night Out tonight, which I'll be in Juniper and McDonald Park. You knock on the doors. And let me tell you something. Just like anything else, like Roosevelt said, you got to get yourself in the arena. You want to play football with me? You want to line up on the other side of me? We'll see during game day what you got, because you can have all the MVP players you want, but when it comes down to me versus you, right, I have just as much a chance as he does. And I am just a fighter. I am just doing everything that I possibly can, pretty much by myself, right? So if I can do it, everybody else can do it. I don't have ties with large organizations, and I'm sure a lot of you do, right? If somebody from one of the civic associations or if somebody from one of the community boards decided to run for office, believe me, you'll have a way better chance than I do. But you got to get out there and you got to do it. And yeah, it's daunting. You think I like going up against the establishment, getting the police called on me, getting thrown out of meetings.
And it's something you don't have to do, but you want to do it because you want to do better.
Yeah, but you mean there's no other way. I mean, I'm like, my family left Eastern Europe. My family on my mother's side came from Poland and Romania. I had family that was killed in the Holocaust that was rounded up, right? And every time I would learn about that, the reoccurring theme would be like, well, how did that happen? What did they do? Right? So if anything, I will not be lying down in my deathbed wishing and hoping and be having regrets that I did nothing. So I am doing everything that I can, and maybe I only have enough fight in me for 2-3 years, but at least I will do it. You know, and then I will educate as many people as I can for someone else to go. And that's all you can do.
Well said. And as far as as far as coverage, obviously I've seen you get a decent amount of coverage. You know, the Post amongst other news outlets. Do you feel that is it hard for you to get coverage going against someone like Hevesy in general from media outlets and reporters, or is it something that is happening well for you? Would you like more? Like, what's your personal take for your story, your particular race?
The Republican Party doesn't own the ground game, doesn't own social media. The Democrats do, right? So you really have to figure out how to get media attention. As a candidate, you're not getting covered. So, there were things that I had to do where I would have to show up in my street clothes and things like that, and then do certain things to get covered. The independent media makes money by selling their content, if it's sensational. So, you have to kind of strategize on
you screaming at Schumer would definitely
right.
get you know?
I'll go to AOC, I'll yell at AOC, and then all of the independent media is going to sell that to the Post. That's how they make money. So
and you did get a lot of coverage on that one.
I got a lot of coverage because
yeah.
I don't have money to spend. You know what I mean? I don't get the big donor money.
Speaking of money, obviously you're not trying to sell out and take money from the big industries. The folks who are in the 28th district or anywhere else, if they do want to help you out and make a donation, how can they? Is there a website or share your information, please?
You can go to JDR for FORNYC.com, JDR for NYC.com. On there, there's a donation link. Everything that I get donated is public, right? So you can, and I'm not getting a lot because I'm not in this to donate. Now, there's the matching funds program, which I didn't qualify for, so I'm not getting the 12-to-1. You understand that there's 12-to-1 matching for these people.
If I could, 12-to-1 here. So what he's saying, Jonathan's saying is, he didn't qualify for that. So candidates who qualify that, for every dollar they raise, they're going to receive $12 from the taxpayer, from the government.
Yeah.
From the city government, so to speak.
Right.
So being that he didn't qualify for that, this is a real underdog story where he's not raising $2 and getting $24. He's raising what he gets, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't need money because what are you going to do? See, what happens in politics is you'll go to the club meetings. Those people there, they want to get paid to knock on doors. They want to get paid. The system is set up to where when you raise money, you're supposed to
pay the volunteers.
Redistribute it, yeah. But the way that I'm doing it is I'm doing town halls. I'm doing meetings. I'm doing educational things. I'm getting out there and going out there because that's the way. There shouldn't be matching funds. You should just have to be involved in the community enough to where the people know you. You don't need to. I ran for city council last year. I spent $500. I got 25% of the vote.
That's amazing. Wow. One of
the other candidates spent $250,000. He got 28% of the vote. So for 3 additional percentage points, cost you $250,000.
So money can't buy an election. We could go back to what Bloomberg spent, $500 million to try to do a Hail Mary, and obviously he didn't become president.
Right. And a lot of things don't work. Like I think Wendy Lee, who ran for circuit court judge, I've never seen a candidate with more posters in all of Queens. And she
did put up posters up, yeah.
And she didn't win. So again, spending money isn't going to win you any elections. It's the community boards and the civic associations. It's testifying and it's talking to the people. It's knocking on the doors. I All I have to do is knock on everybody's door. So if I haven't seen you yet, or if you haven't seen me, you
Boots
will
on the
know.
ground kind of guy.
Boots on the ground.
You're not sitting on a big war chest. You're not afraid to say it. You didn't get the 12-to-1 matching, but you're still in the fight swinging, and you're not backing down from Hevesy and the establishment machine.
No, hell no. You know, he came after our children. He came after your child. He was raised in the neighborhood. He shakes your hand, and then he passes legislation to make your child a lifelong pharmaceutical client. I mean, how sinister and disgusting is that?
It's terrible.
And how can somebody look at him in the eyes and know that he's a product of the neighborhood and he's done that to your children? How?
His own neighbors,
His
like us.
own
And our
neighborhood.
kid, yeah, like us.
Yes. Adabo walks around this neighborhood and shows up while he makes money off injecting your children with experimental vaccinations, giving you heart problems and sterilizing you. And that's the reality of it. Whether you want to agree with me or not, we'll know in a few years. We'll know in 20 years if I'm right or wrong. But this is what these people have done. They have made money off of your backs while endangering your children and grandchildren and their ability to have children. And that's the scariest,
Not only
most disgusting
scary,
thing.
but completely disgusting.
It's completely disgusting. And it's time that they get voted out.
And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I'm going to assume that most of the people in the 28th district do not know this information. Am I wrong to say that?
They have no idea.
And why is that? I'll let you. I have my own opinion, but what's your opinion why that's under the rug, so to speak?
Okay, because if I'm gonna walk up to you on the street and I'm like, hey, do you know 6761? Your brain's gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just people aren't involved. They don't care. It's not that they don't care. They just don't.
They're not digging
know.
deep enough.
Yeah, they don't know. Go ask your friend who's your assembly guy. Nobody's gonna even knows that.
You're right. Most
Nobody
people don't
knows.
even know who their senator is.
Right, because in school, do they teach you about civics? Do they teach you the power of local government in school? No.
These days, I highly doubt
No,
it.
they don't. So you understand what the issue is. But again, and then with all of the, we're very emotional, right? We care about people's civil rights. We care about, taking care of people in the community. But they use that against you. They use that against you. So yes, we're compassionate, but we're not stupid, right? So
Most of us aren't.
Most of us aren't. So don't just fall into the trap where we have to accept everything and everybody, because some things are not moral. Some things are not okay. And it's okay to take a stand. So we don't have to accept everything. And that's something people have to just really work on themselves on.
Now, if you don't mind, I just wanted to change the subject about safety. Recent times, the Supreme Court has obviously knocked down a lot of the gun laws here in New York City in particular, where you have to show your social media, get 100 reference, whatever the things were. And now, people hand you even cards in the street, help you get a pistol permit, all that stuff. What's your opinion on more people getting armed for protection, whether it's outside the house or inside the house or the business? And what's your position on just going to all the forums I've seen online? I've seen a lot of people in the Forest Hills, Rego Park, even Kew Gardens area, because of these shelters popping up, that are saying, some have said it, and how serious they are they kids or adults, I don't know, but a lot of people say we're going to start our own vigilante group, street justice, we're not calling the cops, they don't show up. Or they're like, hey, we're going to start our own neighborhood, watch program and take matters into our own hands, be the eyes and ears. What's your thoughts on how the crime's getting out of control, as it is, unfortunately? What's your thoughts on those measures that some people may be taking to protect themselves, their business, and their community?
Listen, why do you think they don't want us knowing our culture? Why do you think they don't want us knowing the founding of our country? Why do you think they tell us that America is bad? Because, first of all, in Boston, there was the Boston Tea Party where they added a 0.02% tax, and the people bugged.
And it started
they went crazy.
A revolution.
And this is not an $18 congestion pricing tax. This is a tax on tea. And then the real reason why the country was founded, because they went to Lexington and Concord to disarm the people. I mean, that's why the country was founded, because they wanted to disarm the people. Now, obviously it's a touchy subject because, nobody wants people, like shooting everyone and shooting your kids.
Well, we already have it. It's just the bad guys.
Right. But the one thing that I will say is that the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. And arms is short for armaments. Armaments are cannons, right? So the point of the Second Amendment is to protect the people against the government, not to protect yourself against
Well,
people on the
it
street.
does say all enemies, both foreign and domestic, including
Yes,
your government. It should be a
right.
militia. I don't have the, I'm paraphrasing, but it should
Right.
have a militia in each state ready to defend themselves
Yes.
against tyranny from their own government.
Right. It's really against tyranny from the government. So, should you be allowed to protect yourself and your family? What happened the other day when there was a squatter in someone's house and they called the police, and who did they arrest? They arrested the homeowner,
yeah.
not the squatter. Right? So, like I said, they've established the rules already that we can't protect ourselves. We cannot protect our kids. We cannot protect our property. They've already established that.
I agree.
So, what is the solution? I mean, it's not to go out and shoot and kill everybody, obviously
No,
not.
we're talking
but-
strictly defense against bad people with
Okay,
bad intentions.
that's
sure.
right. So when they empty all the shelters for the people that need mental health because they put the migrants in there, and now they're in the subways and in the
On
streets,
63rd Drive, Queens Boulevard,
right?
everywhere.
What's going to happen when your mom gets pushed into the tracks? What's going to happen when your daughter gets violated? Like, what do you do then? And that's what we need to be careful of.
I agree.
So we need to have preventive measures, and unfortunately, you have to look out for yourself now. And I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. I'm not going to tell them to go be violent, but everybody knows it. I don't have to convince you that when you're walking down
It's a dangerous time
in
we
the
live in.
middle of the night and you have military-age men with no jobs and that they're completely going to get away with it.
We don't even know who they are, what
And
their
we
name
don't know
is,
who they
where
are,
they're from.
and I can't have my daughters walking at night anymore. So that's the reality of what we're living in. So you ask yourself, because I don't have the answer. Ask yourself, what is it that we can do? Because that's what you're going to have to face when it happens to you.
And unfortunately, the police have been neutered for lack of terminology. We went from a time where, doesn't seem like too far long ago, Giuliani, old senior citizen would get jaywalking tickets on Queens Boulevard with walkers. And, you get arrested for open container or urinating. And now you can pretty much shoot at the police, be here illegally, and in 2 hours they'll say F you to the media and they're out the courthouse.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think people back then, a few years ago, you would tell them these things and they just wouldn't believe you. But now they're feeling it in their pockets. So they're starting to wake up a little bit because, Soviet defectors that came over here, talked about the demoralization and the subversion. And you could basically tell someone and show them in their face what's happening and they still wouldn't believe it. So, this is basically what we're up against, but I think people can feel it now in their pocket. People know when they go shopping, it's ridiculous. People know that everything's just crazy. So I think gas, right? And again, 2035, everybody, 2035.
Well, you know what? Speaking of energy type stuff, what's your take on this Green New Deal? What's your personal take on it? I personally don't like it. I think it's going to make a few elite people rich and bankrupt everybody else. But what's your take on it where, they're basically giving you a guilt trip. If you don't go green, you're destroying the earth and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, okay.
No gas cars,
Right, so, okay, few things, right? If everybody is so worried about electric, why didn't they make all the cars hybrids? Why didn't they make them gas and electric to where the auto manufacturers could still build automobiles and we can still have a choice of which way we want to go? But the batteries, the lithium and cobalt, is mined by slave labor in Africa.
And destroys the environment.
And the leach fields for these lithium and cobalt kill all the birds that fly over them. It's worse than nuclear waste. So we are carbon-based life forms, right? We are carbon. I don't think people really understand that or aware
What
of
we
it.
breathe out gives the trees and the plants
carbon dioxide. So when they're going to regulate our carbon emissions, are they going to regulate our breath? Does that not mean that we're going to get taxed on our livelihood, on our, so this is what people have to start understanding. Of course we care about the environment, but having slave labor in Africa to power our vehicles in this country is not the answer. I'm sorry, it is not. And all of these spending billions and billions of dollars to put car chargers that, by the way,
God.
and wait till the homeless people realize that it's full of copper.
Oh,
I mean,
thanks for telling them.
right. And transportation is our freedom. Our freedom of movement is a big part of
The automobile is part of Americana.
Right. And by 2035, if we all have to have electric vehicles, then who's going to be able to afford that?
Nobody. And the thing that bothers me is hapless Hochul, as I'll refer to her, signing that law, no diesel, no ethanol, no out. I mean, who wants to pay for something that most people can't afford, and the technology's not there? I don't want to be somewhere I'm headed down to North Carolina, Florida, and I got to stop, knock on some stranger's door. Hey, could you charge me up? I mean, we're spending a fortune on this infrastructure, and the solar stuff is another one that they're pushing, which I'm not for, because 99% is made in China, and that technology, unfortunately, is not to where it needs to be. So I just feel personally that the Green New Deal is a Green New sham. A lot of people are going to get hurt, meaning the public, and a lot of people who are selling these things and manufacturing them and in bed with them are going to be making a lot of money, like some elected people in Washington probably who have inside knowledge and this and that. So I just think it's very un-American where you're telling people in a certain state, you can only buy this type of vehicle. You can only buy a red car. I mean, what's next?
Yeah.
You can only buy a white car or a blue car. It's crazy.
But let me ask you this, like, let's say you convert your boiler to electric and now you have electric heat. You think that's going to be cheaper?
No, 100%.
So it's not like what they're telling you is not real. Like, you're going to have to be spending more money, and you need coal and diesel to burn to create electricity.
And everything they're doing, we're closing, or we have closed with the Indian Power Nuclear Plant upstate, and all these things the last governor and the current one are doing. Everything is done deliberately to drive our cost up. Just like, Sleepy Joe and Kamala, Crazy Kamala, stop drilling. Here, why are we buying oil from people who want to kill us and spending more? We're sitting on so much. Why are we went from energy independence to energy dependent from bad guys wanting to kill us, whether it's Iran or Venezuela or whoever. And now these elected officials are just, everything they're implementing is to make the cost of energy so high where you won't be able to afford to put a TV on anymore. It's just crazy.
Yeah, but where's the geothermal? Where's the hydroelectric? Like, where?
That's a great question, John. Where is it?
Where is the things that actually work and are free? You could put a generator in the Hudson River and have that thing spinning and create free energy in perpetuity. But nobody's going to make money off of that, so why would they do that?
So why would we do it, exactly?
Why don't you go to a volcano where there's hot air going up and put a generator there and just have it spinning, generating in perpetuity?
That's a great concept. No one said that.
Why? And in terms of, I just want to say, since I'm running for a state position, is that the Finger Lakes area in upstate New York, I will fight 100% to keep that the most pristine that it's ever been on the face of this earth. And I will never allow any kind of power plant or anything like that to even come close to any of those lakes up there. But we have other systems that we can utilize. And that's a perfect example, is the electric vehicle. It should have been hybridized. You should have had the ability to have both electric and gas. But they don't do that because they see dollar signs and then they go. And again, if you don't believe me, research. Where does cobalt come from? You want a child in Africa with his bare hands to dig?
It's almost like that Diamond movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Same kind of idea, but a different.
I'm not for that. I'm not for that. So
child labor and high cost. He's not for it. So if you guys are paying attention, he's stated himself there. Look, I drive one of my cars is a truck, and it's a flex. So I can go ethanol and gas, which is great. Most of the corn's coming from Iowa. I'm happy to support our cousins in the interior. And it's cheaper than gas. And not a lot of people have it, but there's a place in the neighborhood I can buy it. And I like to go with that because it's cheaper. But the whole thing that bothers me as an American, as a New Yorker, is where's the choice? Where's our freedom? Now you're telling me you can only buy an electric car. And I'll be honest with you, I think or if she's still governor, whoever is, I think there's going to be such pushback. They're going to have to indefinitely pause that again, like a congestion pricing, because I think you're going to put people out of business. You're going to put families out of business, and people can't afford these cars. They cost more, and you get less mileage out of them. It's crazy.
If a truck is delivered, we're in Bridie's right now. I'm going to get the lemon pepper wings because I love them here. But let's say the truck is coming from Jersey to bring Bridie's the chicken wings. Who's going to pay that $36 toll? It's going to be on the menu. Okay? Right now, the wings are going to be $3 more, and I'm not down for that. I don't want, I have kids. You know what I'm saying? Things are pretty much priced per the individual. If I bring my family here,
forget it.
And I have to pay $30, $40 extra, that's what, $200, $300? I have to spend to feed my family every day.
You start eating at home, and then restaurants start losing money.
Right, and then the restaurants lose money, and they go
Jobs
out of business.
get lost.
Right, and then in the city of Yes, one of the housing opportunities is to put housing in abandoned office spaces and in commercial space. So they're gonna force this place to go bankrupt and then make it into like a tenement or a hostel for migrants. Like it's insane.
So it's unfortunate that the areas you represent have a lot of challenges. When you do get elected, obviously you're going to have a list of things to tackle them for. I don't know where to start, honestly. I don't envy you. You're going to have a list of,
Let me tell you something. Glendale and Middle Village is the most Republican neighborhood in all of Queens. I have the best shot of winning this race than any other assemblyman candidate in all of the city. All right? The people just wake up. If I can just get out to Forest Hills and tell the Jews to not vote Democrat, if I can go to Forest Hills and explain to them on a third party, and I tell them what the city is doing, I can get it. Hevesy didn't make the Working Families Party. No. So it's just me, the Republican and the We the People line versus
Don't forget Rego Park.
And Rego Park as well. And so I have the best chance to win. People might not think so, but I do, and I know I do. And that's why I'm doing these meetings, and that's why I am not just going out there asking people for money. I'm going out there and informing them because I know that I can bring this home. I know I can.
Well, listen, I think anyone who gets to know you through this knows you're a fighter. You obviously don't have to do this, but you're doing this. You're not looking to sell yourself out or your constituents or your family's future out. You're not taking the big donations like some other people out there. So I think you have a good chance. I think you just got to keep doing what you're doing and get in front of those people. Yes, there's a lot of conservative people in Middle Village and Glendale, but I think you'd be surprised no matter what they're registered at. A lot of people have had it up to here in Forest Hills and Rego Park. I can tell you, my neighbors, my family, my friends that live in those areas, they're not happy with the quality of life is. They're not happy with the taxes. And speaking of taxes, is there anything you can do? I know you'd have to obviously write a bill and get other people to collaborate and sign it. But what can we do to cap or stop raising our property taxes every year? It just seems like every year you get one of those letters, congratulations, we value your house more, and congratulations, you'll be paying more. And is there anything you can do from that seat? I know it correlates to the city and the state, but is there anything you can do to, hey, it's enough, we're taxed enough?
I mean, the tax code is, very complicated, as we all know.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So, but like I said, if there's a bill I can write that will...
Or support.
or anything like that. I mean, I think that the problem with like taxes is people don't realize that you can't take the money from people right off the bat. You got to let them, I don't want to pay the city or the state my check right away. Let me use that money. Let me come to Brighty's. Let me order some food. They'll have to pay tax on the truck guy, and the truck guy gets the gas and has to pay the tax on
Sure.
that. And that's the way to circulate the money and give us back the ability for disposable income. Now, one of the things that is possible is that when the government spends the money, for example, one of the things that I've realized is cost of living is very expensive, right? So
understatement.
So if we simply helped people with the rent, as ridiculous as that may sound, but that would put more money in people's pockets, and that would allow people to travel more. That would allow people to buy more things. The government's supposed to be there to help you, not spend all of your money in certain areas. So
keyword is supposed to.
Right. So like I said, there's just an ideological situation. I think you just have to, be a voice for that and just try your best. I mean, a lot of the people that are in office now have been selected, not elected.
Well, that's very nice, very good terminology. Selected, not elected. I like that.
So it's really important that we just have a voice for the constituents, a voice for the people, not for the mega donors.
And obviously, you being someone who's from the neighborhood would be a voice for us. You know the beat. You know what's going on. I'm sure you're not hearing a rosy picture. Everyone's high-fiving you. They're so thrilled with the way the neighborhoods are and the community is, and there's a lot of work to do. You're obviously a fighter. I personally don't like Hevesy. I'm not afraid to say that. I don't think he's done anything the time he's been there. He's got a name, and to me, that's it. And I don't see really, other than getting one of these little mailers every quarter or twice a year with a photo op somewhere, just like Lynn Shulman and a bunch of other useless political hacks. Something has to change. People have to do their research, like you said. I think that's the big takeaway from what we've talked about today is look into who's who and what they believe in, where they're getting the money from, what they vote for. And we got to give the voice to the people. I think the people in this area have been long overlooked. We recently had the city council chop us up into 3 districts. Unfortunately, I was represented by Shulman, who I say has no value to the people at all. She's not the only one, but a lot of them. And we need to get some new people in there like you that can actually engage the community, do the right thing, because a lot of things are broken and we need some fixing badly.
Yeah, just give it a chance. Don't vote the same people and see what happens if you vote someone else. Give it a try, because what you're doing right now and who you're voting for isn't working. So give it a shot. Just vote for someone new and see how much of an impact we can make.
Yep, I agree. So listen, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I want to thank Jonathan for coming. He's running for the 28th District, Glendale, Middle Village, Forest Hills, and last but not least, Rego Park. I'm not going to forget my hometown. And Kew Gardens, excuse me, I don't want to offend anyone at Kew Gardens. So obviously, look up what the guy's about. Look up what Mr. Hevesey's been doing. Look up what he supports. I think you'll see a good contrast there. And as I always like to say, you got to have to make a good choice, what's best for you and your family, your community, and the future of those people, whether you have children, grandchildren, etc. We live in a city that unfortunately is not doing well. It's in decline, and we need some change. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming by, Queen's Voice. We hope to catch up with you again soon. As a matter of fact, we will be catching up with you August 15th, Thursday at 7:30. Please come out to the Grace Lutheran Church on Union Turnpike, right behind Metropolitan Avenue by Stop and Shop in Forest Hills. There'll be a City of Yes meeting. I think everybody in New York City should know about this. We've done some coverage on it. I think 3 videos posted. We learned a lot ourselves. So I would urge everybody to come down, hear what the gentleman has to say and any other speakers, and basically educate yourself, see what's going on. Jonathan, thanks again.
Thank you so much, brother.
Queen's Voice, thanks for tuning in. Peter Kafalos, happy to be back, and we will see you guys soon. Take care. Have a great day.